Well, the European Commission has warned countries around the continent not to relax their COVID-19 restrictions too early. Otherwise, they risk facing a third wave of the virus after Christmas. For more on this, let's cross over to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who is in Brussels. Well, good evening to you, Darren. Well, in the report just earlier, we heard Ursula von der Leyen celebrating the fact that vaccines are coming online soon. But as we were just saying, she's also concerned about a third wave of the virus.
Yeah, indeed, and those vaccinations are probably likely to get approval in the second half of next month and may well see some immunisations of Europeans beginning before the end of this year. However, we're not looking at mass immunisation until the first couple of months of 2019, certainly up until Easter and beyond. And that means that millions and millions of Europeans will still be exposed to this virus for very many months to come. And that is why Ursula von der Leyen is urging this caution, saying to governments that people need to look at what happens in the spring and summer, not to make the same mistakes, not to ease restrictions too soon, because otherwise many European countries could face this so-called third wave in the late winter, potentially at the start of next year. And, she's suggesting that this virus is still a pretty big deal for many European countries, that while some may well be out of the worst of it. Countries like Belgium, for example, where I am now, cases have dropped significantly in the last couple of weeks. Others are not out of the woods yet. And this is a disease that was killing 3,000 Europeans a day as recently as last week. I've had the chance to speak to one MEP, a French MEP who sits on the Health Committee here in the European Parliament. And I started by asking her, essentially, was Ursula von der Leyen right, Isabel, to tell governments, or to suggest to them at least, that they needed to proceed with caution?
So I think that there is a strong concern that the third wave could happen, because pandemics usually have at least 3 waves. But it really depends on our, again, way to follow the barrier measures and to organize vaccination to avoid a possible third wave, or at least decrease it.
So, but surely one of the ways of trying to ensure that does not happen is, for example, to relax the rules at Christmas, which almost every government seems to be doing. That's a recipe for disaster, surely.
We should certainly not relax too much, even if everybody knows that the mental health of the citizens requires to have some privileged moments with their families and relatives. But we should really not relax, because, again, there is a great risk for resurgence of the pandemic.
So do you then disagree with what national governments are doing, saying that people can go and visit relatives, even if it's only for a couple of days? Because we know that's where the virus spreads at its best, isn't it? In small spaces, next to people, particularly people you know well, and, lots of those people will be having some Christmas drinks as well. It's going to lead to a surge of cases, surely, in the new year.
This is why the governments, including mine, are really warning very loud on not to relax, even if they a little bit coolen the lockdown, because we have a difficult balance to find between the sanitary needs and the mental health of the citizens, not to talk about economy and social disasters generated by the lockdowns. So there's really a balance to find between health and normal way of living.
But also there's a lack of EU coordination yet again, isn't there? In the sense that we know, for example, France is going to reopen its retail shops very soon. They're going to remain closed here in Belgium, which is probably meaning that a lot of Belgians are simply going to drive across the border into France to go shopping. And again, it's this lack of coordination that, countries are yet again, irrespective of the European Union, doing what they think is best.
Well, I think that the best would, of course, be to have homogeneous recommendations, but this would need EU health competencies, and we still don't have. There is an improvement, though, in the way the governments talk to each other, exchange practices, and try to coordinate, but we are far from it.
And this week, Isabel, we have seen countries ranging from Ireland to Germany to France to the UK suggesting that they are going to ease restrictions pretty significantly over Christmas so that people are allowed to travel and visit friends and family for that Christmas period. And that means millions, tens of millions of Europeans probably not just even travelling within their own country, but across the continent itself, spending time, as I say, in those intimate settings. It's difficult to conclude that despite Ursula von der Leyen's words, some of the mistakes that were made over summer holidays in the summer will be repeated this Christmas period, and that we may well see those infections rise again at the start of next year, ahead of that mass immunisation we're likely to see with those vaccines, as I say, in the first quarter of 2021.
OK, concern there over a third wave of COVID-19. Many thanks, Darren.